he has some fabulous quotes about acting that I just love, and one of them was his definition of acting, which is acting is living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. I just love that, because it's about bringing yourself fully to the role and being truthful in that moment, but in circumstances that you would otherwise never find yourself in. And I just think that's actually a great analogy for turning up online as yourself.
There we go. We are recording. Please do not swear, unless you really want to.
I'll try not to. You never know what moustache will say.
Hello and welcome to Power to Speak, the podcast. And my guest today is Frank Prendergast. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. You are a digital strategist and you work with your lovely wife, Marci. And see, I was just double checking my notes there, but to rise above the blah.
Yeah,
so
we help people.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So we rise above the blah is kind of like our tagline, because it's all about becoming more visible and attracting the right clients to you. And so it's about really shining and really allowing yourself to come through in your marketing. What we do really is we help people to define their personal brand, align their online presence, shine through their content, and amplify their message. So it's about, we kind of take a holistic view of your online presence basically, and then help you to grow your business by becoming more visible and attracting the right clients.
Sounds perfect. Please help. I need some help. So do you do that with individuals, or do you do that with bigger brands, or is it mainly sort of the go it alones?
So that's a great question. And actually, so right now on my LinkedIn headline, so LinkedIn is like my favorite social media platform at the moment. Right now, my headline says digital strategy for personal brands, because we do love working with solopreneurs, a lot of service-based solopreneurs. However, we do have companies as clients, and we do take on certain companies, and we've been looking at that lately, and we've been kind of going, because we don't like working with big companies. And I think for me, part of it is that at one point I found myself in the kind of in a startup company, 9 to 5 with a boss, the partitions, everything, and I was like, this is not me. How did I get here? I took a wrong turn somewhere. And so part of it is just that I don't really like that environment. And part of it, I think, is that I tend to be a very immediate person, and I love the immediacy of working with solopreneurs. So you can make a decision, you can implement, you can move fast. It's fantastic. However, there are some companies, some small companies that we work with, and I think we've been analyzing it recently, and what it comes down to really is first of all, if the company is small enough that we can have that immediacy, brilliant. And then secondly, what we do a lot of the time is we help small businesses who are either earlier on in the journey, or maybe they're not earlier on in the journey, but they've always been kind of hiding behind their logo. And we help the owners and sometimes the staff, but a lot of the time it's the owners, to just kind of step out from behind that logo. And so it all comes back really to building your personal brand, even if it's within a company environment. Yeah.
I mean, how easy is that to get them to step out from behind their logo? Because obviously personal branding is, I mean, it sounds very personal. So what is it around personal branding that a company that is quite faceless generally can use to actually promote their brand?
I think, I think what happens sometimes is small businesses look at massive companies and they try and emulate their marketing. But those massive companies can afford to be, there's two things. One, they can afford to be faceless because they have massive budgets and they can do multi-million-dollar, ad campaigns that actually have an emotional impact because they're directed by incredible directors and all the rest of it. And the other thing is that there are a lot of massive brands as well. Like, people often point to Steve Jobs in the past, or Elon Musk now is another one at the moment. And, there are a lot of massive brands that actually do use personal brands to put a face on their company. But I think a lot of the time, they look at these smaller companies, look at these big companies and try and emulate this kind of logo, faceless type of approach. And when you're a smaller company, you're missing out on that competitive advantage of actually allowing people to connect with the people behind the company, because it's just, we distrust brands so much more now these days. And actually allowing people in to see the people and to see the passion that's behind the business, the passion that the owners have for what they do. I mean, people really connect with that. So to not to hide that away just seems like a real shame to me. And it's really kind of saying, you know what, we don't want that competitive advantage.
Yeah, and obviously the whole personal brand thing is literally that kind of vulnerability almost. So what is the advantage of having a personal brand?
Well, I think it is that you attract people. So I think you have a much harder job attracting people to a logo, or to to imagery that is not you, that is not authentic, that is not that passion for the business. If you step forward and allow people in and share with people what you're doing, and basically invite them in to share what it is you're passionate about, because your potential customer, if they are right for your business, then in some way, shape, or form, they're passionate about it too. They may not realize it yet. And then, that's the job of the marketing with your personal brand, is to help them get to that passion, help them realize how passionate they are about what it is you do. And then, so by sharing that, you're attracting those like-minded people. And so I think that's the huge benefit, is that it's just much easier for a person to attract like-minded people.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And obviously with what I do, with finding people's voices really, and again it's about just trying to get them to step out from behind their logo and put together some kind of a signature talk that actually sort of dives into those stories and that personal side of their brand, and the passion I think is really important. And that's what comes out if you really kind of want to, because everybody's running their business for a reason, and generally that comes from a place of passion. It's something that they've always wanted to do. So what's your passion in what you do? Why do you do what you do?
I think it goes back to what I was saying about finding myself in that 9 to 5 and realizing, hang on, this is wrong for me. So I think a lot of the passion of what I do is helping other people who have also made that choice to make it work. I don't encourage people to quit the 9 to 5 and do their own thing. I do if they express a desire to do so, I'll encourage it. But I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, just quit the 9 to 5 and start your own business. And because I do see a lot of people saying that. But I think, there are people that the 9 to 5 is right for, and there are people that entrepreneurship is right for. And so my passion is in helping the people who've already realized, the 9 to 5 isn't for me, having a boss isn't for me, I want to have my own business. And then my passion is helping them make a real success out of that.
So how did you and Marci come to be running this business together? What came first, the business or the marriage?
Yeah, so the marriage came first. So what happened was, I was actually I was doing digital marketing and web design, and it would have been kind of primarily web design. And when I met Marci was actually chefing in a kitchen. And we got together, and Marci was always being pulled in to do writing and social media work for any business that she was working for. And at some point, I think it was mostly the unsociable hours of chefing, Marci was like, Marci began searching for actually what is it I really want to do. So in a way, Marci became one of those people who was like, yeah, the 9 to 5 and having a boss, maybe not for me. And so Marci started focusing more and more on her writing. And she moved from chefing to working in more food, still staying with food, but working in retail, a lot of cheese and wine. But she then found, Marci will tell you herself, she's very much an introvert, and dealing with the public was not working for her either. And so somewhere along the way, I landed a website client who was I can't remember which one came first, but I think it was a chocolate maker website. And I said to Marci, you know, clients never come to me with content. And whenever I ask them about the content, because I had in the past tried to pair clients with copywriters, and it had just never worked out. And the clients were always saying, no, 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 we'll do it ourselves. We'll do it ourselves. They never did it. And then when they finally did it, like 7 deadlines past the date, it just was never where it really needed to be for an effective website. So I said to Marci, you know, this would be perfect. You could write knowledgeably about food. So you could write about this chocolate, and I can do the design, and it would be perfect. Now, I will say at this point, if you ever have Marci on your podcast and you ask her the story, she will tell you it was her idea. So there's some argument about who came up with this brilliant idea of us working together. But we did the chocolate website, and it was a huge success. It was just absolutely fantastic. It made my life so much easier. Marci had a ball doing it. The client was thrilled. It was just fantastic. And so we then just organically just happened to get another client who was in the food business. It was a pizza maker. And so then for a while, so that was when we kind of started working together full time. And for a while, that's what we did. We did websites for food, websites and marketing for food businesses. And then over time, I think actually what happened was I just realized that I found myself, when people asked me what I did, I found myself saying things like, I design websites and I act to keep myself sane. And this just became this thing that I was saying. And finally I was like, wait, what am I saying? And like, if I'm acting to keep myself sane, are the websites driving me insane? And if they are, why am I doing them? So we had actually developed this onboarding system for clients, because another problem that we had identified was that clients came to us and they didn't have the fundamentals of their branding sorted out. And again, you really need that to develop an effective website. So we had begun doing that as part of our process. And we just looked at it and said, you know what? I'm not going to go into what I call the dungeon to build out the websites anymore. And we're going to focus on branding, messaging, and we still do website work, but it's very rare now that we would take on a website project. However, what we do is we will say, you know, for example, we will look at somebody's offer page and very, very specifically take that page and optimize it for conversions, and just really narrowing the focus with really specific goals and working on something very specific within the website.
Well, that sounds like a very worthwhile thing to do for lots of people. You know, I mean, there's lots of people out there designing websites, but to have somebody do that kind of work, I would imagine it's invaluable.
Yeah.
But we are going to step back to
Yes.
the acting for sanity.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I know that you have an acting background, as do I. So which came first? I think I read when I was sort of having a look into what you do, that you were doing different things, and then you kind of came across theatre and acting. And a thing that I've always said about when I first stepped into the theatre as a profession, I found my tribe. Suddenly everything went, oh, this is where I'm meant to be. Was that the same for you?
Yeah. So when I found myself in that 9 to 5 situation, I had that kind of realization, no, I'm in the wrong place. And I quit what was a really, really good job. And people, I think, thought I was nuts. um, and I just kind of tipped away doing websites and digital marketing while I kind of explored, what is it that I'm meant to be doing? And it was actually my mum rang me one day. I actually thought it might be music, and I was kind of exploring music a little bit. And my mum rang me one day and said, "I know you're kind of looking around for what you might be interested in right now. There's a weekend course in acting for screen, and I thought you should maybe have a look at it." My mum, it was an acting teacher, a speech and drama teacher,
Mm.
and an actress. And my sister was an actress, and my younger sister also teaches speech and drama. So it's definitely in the family, but I had pretty much completely ignored it. In fact, I had kind of said I wanted no part of it. My mom just rang me, I think, at that kind of right moment for me, and I went to the workshop, and I just loved it. And somehow I stumbled out of a weekend workshop and right into a role with a very well-known theater company here. And from there, yeah, like you say, I kind of thought I have found my tribe. But what happened over time was that I realized when I was making this statement of, I do digital marketing and websites and I act to keep myself sane, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, Emmett O'Neill, and he said to me, you're good at a lot of things, but you've got to stop doing things like just because you can do them, and you've got to start just doing the things that you love doing. And when he said it to me, my brain immediately kind of went, okay, so I need to be an actor. But the more I kind of thought about it and the more I tried to figure out what that would look like, the more I realized that that wasn't actually it. And I realized eventually that the websites, at the time I was still working on my own. I don't think Marci was working with me at that point. And so the websites and digital marketing were completely on my own. And a lot of the time I would do a bit of work with the client, then I would go off and build out the websites. And so it struck me that actually, it was the interacting with people. That's what was keeping me sane. And so that's why when myself and Marci, so this was a long process. I'm making it sound like I figured all this out really quickly. It was a really long process. And so I was working with Marci, and we started to figure out how we could actually focus me more on working with people and less on going off on my own and having to build out a 30-page website or whatever it might be. And so then I kind of found my tribe again, particularly on LinkedIn with in digital marketing and personal branding. And so now I have two tribes.
Yay, two tribes go to war. Yes, you also have made the point that there is some kind of connection or bridge from the acting world into the personal branding world. And
Hmm.
it's certainly something that I find with what I do now, is that when I'm talking to business owners, anybody that's got a message to share, I am able to use all of my acting training to really help them find their personal brand, find out who they are, and be able to sort of share that with their audience. And I think the acting training is actually fundamental to, everybody should have a certain amount of actors training, whether it's the breath, the improvisation,
Yeah.
just the confidence it gives you, and the ability to collaborate with others, and the ability to be creative. I mean, it's just so amazing. Don't,
Yeah.
I'll stop there. But I think you've found a similar sort of thing with personal branding.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my favorite, when I was trying to figure out how to act, um, I was searching everywhere, and I knew what performances I enjoyed watching, but I couldn't figure out, like, how do they do that? And so the practitioner that I thankfully stumbled across, that really, really helped me start to figure that out, was one of the all-time great acting teachers, Sanford Meisner.
Ooh.
And he has some fabulous quotes about acting that I just love. And one of them was his definition of acting, which is acting is living truthfully under imaginary circumstances.
Perfect. Yeah.
I just love that,
Yeah.
because it's about bringing yourself fully to the role and being truthful in that moment, but in circumstances that you would otherwise never find yourself in. And I just think that's actually a great analogy for turning up online as yourself, because like my generation, these are tools that we're not actually used to. I'm really interested. Actually, I'd love to talk to some, Gen Zers and see how they find it, and is it just completely natural to them? But for us, you sit down at a keyboard or you sit down in front of a camera, and you freeze up, and it's like, well, how do I actually, so to me, personal branding is living truthfully under digital circumstances
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah.
And it's also, I think there's a kind of a similarity in terms of an actor when they're doing a role, they don't you don't sit down and watch a film and like watch somebody's entire life, because it would if it was in real time and it was, you'd be sitting there forever.
Yeah.
And so you pick the moments, you pick the key things to put forward to tell the story in a film. The actor then has to be completely truthful in that moment. And it's very similar when you're doing your personal branding work. It has to be authentic, but it's not, that doesn't mean it's 100% of you or everything that crosses your mind or your entire life. You can be selective, so that people get a picture of you. It's truthful, it's inviting, it's real, but it's not invading your privacy, or it's not putting everything out there, unless someone is completely comfortable with that. I have nothing against it if they are, but I wouldn't be comfortable putting myself out there 100%. And so I look at amplifying the relevant attributes to build a personal brand that is authentic.
Yeah, that's perfect. That is exactly what I tried to put across. And I love that analogy there of the film, and the fact that obviously if you were filming somebody's life, that you only take the relevant moments. And I always say to people don't need to hear your whole life story, warts and all. This is not about, getting sympathy or saying, look at how fantastic I am. This is looking at the audience as they are watching a film and picking out those bits that are relevant to them, that then help and validate them as an audience and benefit them in some way. So I think that really is the crux of it. But it's that whole thing about telling the truth. I used to be in acting because I used to teach acting for many, many years. And I'd be with students and say to them, you need to be telling the truth. And it took a while for that penny to drop, is the
Yeah,
fact that you as an actor, you're not a good liar, which I used to get. People used to say to me, oh, you're an actor, you
yeah,
must be really good at lying. It's like,
yeah,
no, you have to be really good at telling the truth. And if you can't find the truthfulness in the character you're playing, then obviously, for me, it was an actor once saying to me when I was a dresser many, many years ago, saying to me that if you don't believe what you're doing, then the audience won't believe it either. And it
yeah,
is that moment of recognition for me that actually this is not about the audience looking at me playing a character. This is the audience looking at me being that character. And I think it is relevant, exactly as you're saying, with the personal branding, is that somehow we need to find the truth of who it is and what we do and why we do it, and portray that, put that across, is that you're not playing at being somebody you think you should be, but you are being the person that is at the center of who you are, and all of your values.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you still act? You're still doing it for
I
keeping you
do.
sane?
I do still act, but it's really interesting because it's not to keep me sane anymore. So I have got a huge amount of kind of balance back in my life. And it's actually lovely because acting is a tough game. And I realized that actually I'm not that into theater. And so screen acting is what I love. And screen acting is, massively competitive. I live in Ireland. It's a tiny market. So there isn't a huge amount of work. And so I am now, it's fantastic because I'm now in a much more kind of like Zen state because I'm not chasing roles. I'm not looking to be, a big screen actor. I can now work with people who I know, like, and trust on projects that I know I'm going to enjoy. Because to be honest, where I'm at, so I've been in things like Vikings, Penny Dreadful. I've been in Red Rock, which I think it was an Irish crime drama. But I think I think it aired in the UK as well. So I've been in relatively big things, but always with like a tiny role. And you never know when you're at that level, you're not important enough to be kind of really brought into the fold. You're dropped into a production that
Yeah.
could have been going on for years, and you're dropped in for like 1 day, 2 days. And it might be fabulous. It might be brilliant. I've had some absolutely wonderful experiences, and I've had some absolute nightmares that were like the stuff of extras.
Yes.
And so I love now being in a place where I don't feel like I'm chasing that. I can just act to enjoy myself and act with people that I love working with.
Oh, yes, I wish I was in that position. Unfortunately, Hordle, where I live, it's probably even smaller than Cork, really. It's just,
Right.
yeah, there's not a lot going on down here. But I find now that I feel like I'm a director, and that's really what I always should have been. I mean, I loved acting, but
Interesting.
yeah, the director is kind of where I'm most comfortable, and it's kind of what I do with people now. Is I'm that overseer, so I kind of look at things from all angles, and sort of get them to that point where they are the actor, I'm the director. So that's what I
Right.
love. But I have to say, you've played a couple of the fun, great Irish literary
Yeah.
hero. I
Yeah.
mean, Sing. I've just finished an English literature creative writing degree, and Playboy of the Western World was one of the plays that I had to read for that, and I'd never read it before. So yeah, that was quite an interesting piece. But also, you've
Yeah.
played Joyce, James
Yeah.
Joyce.
Yeah.
So how was that to actually be an Irishman and portraying such literary characters?
It was fun. I mean, so the James Joyce thing, that was great fun because it was a feature. So it was an indie feature, really a very, very arty film, but wonderful. And I was acting opposite Louis Lovett, who is an absolute genius. And I was playing James Joyce and his kind of imaginary alter ego, Shem the Penman.
Oh,
And so, as James Joyce, there was these lovely kind of very serious moments, and then as Shem the Penman, there were he was almost a kind of a Chaplin-esque character. And yeah, it was funny because when the film was shown in the Galway Film Fleadh, which is a big film festival here, we were brought up on stage for Q&A, and I was asked, was it difficult to portray somebody so famous? And I said, I actually found portraying James Joyce absolutely fine. I found Shem the Penman a real challenge because he was this Chaplin-esque type, and I knew very little about slapstick. But thankfully, Louis Lovett is an absolute genius at slapstick and at that type of physical comedy. So he led the way, and I was able to just kind of fall in under Louis and follow his lead. And so I was just really, really lucky that I had somebody there to kind of take me through that process, and obviously the director as well, Padraig Trahey, who is a massive, like, I don't know anyone who knows like that much about film. So yeah, just being supported like that, it was an absolute joy. And then Sing was a tiny little part, but again, I did this like huge. It's really interesting, like I was saying, when I'm acting, the bigger the kind of production, the smaller the role I'm going to get because I'm not known. Um, and what's really interesting to me is that truthfulness that we spoke about. So you can have one line in something, and you can watch it back, and you can be horrendously unhappy with it. I can be horrendously unhappy with myself because I will see I didn't get that. I didn't get that right. Even if it's one line, even if it's one word. When I was playing Sing, I did this huge amount of research. I mean, massive amount of research for this like one line. In fact, was it even one line? It might have even been a look. I can't remember. But I'm so happy with it. I'm so happy with it because all that research, all of the work I did, it all allowed me to do that tiny little moment with great truth.
Yeah, you know, I love it. I love a bit of research, and I think that's what I loved about acting more than anything else, was really delving into the human condition and finding out what motivates people. And you know, again, that's something that comes into what I do now, and I'm sure it's the same with you. But there's just something so interesting about people, and you can tell the actors that have done that kind of work because they really inhabit that person. They
Yeah.
don't, you know, it's not surface. They're not just saying the lines. They
Mm.
actually know why they're saying those lines.
Yeah, and actually, you've just reminded me of something else that I think is really really interesting, and it's that I started working with an acting coach called Tom Kibbe, and he himself actually worked with Sanford Meisner, and he also studied under Stella Adler and Lee Strasberg, so three of the
Wow.
all-time greats, and he has developed his own methods now. But a lot of what he does is activating the creative imagination. So a lot of a lot of my preparation nowadays, so obviously for someone like Singh, you have to do the research because it's a real person. But a lot of my work is just, it's almost like daydreaming. So you are imagining the entire world of the character. And what's interesting is that we actually use the same type of technique, because what happens is, as an actor, you're building empathy for this for this character in these imaginary circumstances, so that if you have to walk on stage or in front of the camera and deliver something, say, about maybe losing a loved one or something like that, you have done all of this imaginary, all of this daydreaming, all of this imagination work where you've imagined all of the circumstances, your relationship with that person that you've lost. You may have imagined the tragic circumstances in which you lost them. You may have imagined the funeral. You may have imagined the aftermath. And so when you're saying those words, they're informed by all of that work. And it's all about building empathy. And so when we're helping someone build their personal brand, we actually do a huge amount of work on their dream client. And we've had so many people say, like, oh, they're expecting kind of quick demographics and a few lines about, what they have for breakfast. And here we are diving in really deep with them and getting them to imagine all kinds of like crazy details. And what we always say to them then at the end is that your work isn't done when you've defined this dream client. Now you have to spend a bit of time with them. You have to daydream about them. When you're doing the washing up at home, start daydreaming about this dream client. Imagine how their day is going. Imagine how they interact. Imagine what they do. And again, it's all about building empathy. It's also that in your marketing, you're speaking directly to this person and with great empathy. So again, massive, like, just I keep finding the oddest correlations between
Yeah.
personal branding work and the acting work.
Yeah, yeah, it is amazing. There is so much there, and it's that thing that the brain doesn't know the difference between what's imagined and what's real. And
Yeah.
I've always had a bit of which is, considering I'm an actor, it is that having slight issues with trying to visualize. When people say, "Well, just visualize this," or just visualize this and you can manifest it, or whatever.
Mm.
But yeah, I think that's exactly it. It's really just getting into the head of who it is that you really want to be working with, because your brain doesn't really know the difference between that.
Yeah, exactly. You can basically kind of trick your brain into believing this person is real so that you can speak to them with that great empathy.
Yeah, and with that confidence that you
Yeah.
know them and you know where they've come from and who they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so is that how, because you've got this sort of brand fire starter that you do, which is a 6-week kind of, is it one-on-one coaching that you do?
Yeah, so the personal brand Firestarter is slightly different again, and that is, I mean, essentially what the personal brand Firestarter is really content coaching, and it's helping you to shine through your content. And I do a little bit of work on personal brand in that, but it's, obviously it's very short and it's very focused on content. So I just do a little bit. I help people craft a very simple personal brand statement just to guide us in the content. So we don't do like the deep dive into the personal brand definition on the Firestarter. We focus very much on creating content on LinkedIn that is going to build your personal brand, is going to allow you to shine through your content and attract the right people to your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. And LinkedIn is the place that people can find you mainly. Is that where you do most of your work and most of your connections?
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely love LinkedIn. We always say to people, you have to go where your dream clients are, and a lot of our dream clients are on LinkedIn. It also just suits us because myself and Marci are both we're writers when it comes to our marketing materials. We're writers. We originally focused on Facebook, and for a long time I loved Facebook. But Facebook just, it became harder and harder to organically reach your audience on Facebook. So we thought, well, maybe we'll, like so many people, maybe we'll hop over to Instagram. And we did for a little while. And then we did it just at the wrong moment because Instagram decided that they were going to focus very much on video. And so we were still poking around, and we thought we would return to LinkedIn. This is a couple of years ago. Thought we'd return to LinkedIn and have a look at how LinkedIn was doing, because I used to hate LinkedIn with a passion. I just couldn't deal with it. But I hadn't kind of returned to it for years. So I was really surprised to come back to it and find that it was a completely different place. And that, a simple text post can do just as well as a video or an image, and so it just made perfect sense for us.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I was never a big fan of LinkedIn until I started connecting with people. And then I think once your connections build and once that network builds, then you kind of build a community. I feel like I've got a community on LinkedIn now that I can kind of converse with and that will support the posts that I put out. And I think that's where you need to get to, isn't it? Is to find that sort of community.
Yeah, and I just find there's real depth to the conversations. I mean, if obviously, as you say, if you purposefully build your network, there's real depth to the conversations. Like we find it, people say Instagram is great for engagement, and it is, if you just look at number of likes and maybe number of comments, but we find on Instagram that the engagement level tends to be quite shallow. And then we used to find Facebook was a bit more like LinkedIn, but the engagements there, well, I think the reach there basically just started to drop off, and therefore the depth of conversations also started to drop off. So for me, yeah, the place that I can have the most wonderful in-depth conversations about things is LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, talking about community, we met through the You Are the Media community when Mark Schaefer came over from the States, and Mark is sort of a bit of a legend in the marketing world. Obviously, I'm not from that world originally, so I didn't particularly know who he was until I started sort of mixing with that community. Right. But you've got quite a great relationship now with Mark and what he's doing with the Rise coin and all of this kind of Web3 NFT kind of, metaverse kind of stuff, which goes way over my head. So how did that connection start, and how involved are you with that now?
Yeah, so again, that's all thanks to LinkedIn, because so myself and Marci traveled over for that event from Ireland to the You Are the Media event, and one of the reasons we did that was just it seemed just absolutely custom made for us, because the way that it all transpired was I connected with John Aspirian some time ago, and John Aspirian is just a wonderful, helpful personality, and he started his community Espresso Plus. And so when he started it, it was an absolute no-brainer for me to join. So I joined Espresso Plus, got involved in the community there, and then it was through that community that John said, "Oh, Mark Schaefer, someone who John greatly admires, he said that Mark Schaefer had another community called the Rise community, and it was centered around the Rise coin, which is it's a token, which is it's basically part of the kind of cryptocurrency family, but they call it a creator coin. So it's not one of these investment things. It's not about making money. It's about how you can use cryptocurrency and Web3 technologies. It's the utility of them and how we can use them as creators. So, for example, Mark Schaefer will give you a certain amount of Rise coin, and then when you have that Rise coin, you can go on Discord, which is a community discussion application. Discord can check that you hold Rise coin and allow you into the community. So it's just about the functionality, about the utility, and then if you have a certain amount, if you build up a certain amount more of the Rise coin, you get access to more rooms within the community. You get access to VIP channels, which gives you access to webinars, things like that. And then somewhere along the way, I also then joined, started to join in with the You Are the Media community. So when the event was announced in Poole in Bournemouth, it was like this perfect Venn diagram of the three best communities that I was involved in. So myself and Marci were like, well, we have to go. We absolutely just have to go and meet these people in real life from these three different communities. So yeah, it's fantastic. The Web3 stuff, the Rise community is very focused on exploring the Web3 stuff. It is all very new to me as well. I had kind of poked around a little bit before, but I had found it quite intimidating. Very, there was a lot of, obviously with cryptocurrency, there's an awful lot of like financial stuff and a lot of what I call kind of crypto bro hustle nonsense. And so I'd been looking for a much more kind of sane approach to looking at, well, what do these technologies mean for the future of marketing? And that's exactly how I would describe the Rise community. It's a sane approach looking at these technologies with like-minded people. And yeah, absolutely fabulous.
And what have you discovered so far then? So what is the benefit?
So we recently, I helped organize a meetup in the metaverse. So this is just, I think, a really good example of just exploring, what the future of marketing might be or what the opportunities might be. And what happened was in the VIP channel had a talk by Mitch Jackson on Spatial, which is an app that is a metaverse environment. So we're talking virtual reality. And Mitch was talking a lot about how he was using it to pitch for new business and having great success with it. And he was also talking about how he was using it to do things like he could get 3D models made of things that would allow expert witnesses. So Mitch is a solicitor or a lawyer. And he could get expert witnesses to examine 3D objects in the metaverse much faster, like before he could get them the actual object. So amazing kind of utilization like that. So then the community decided after that talk, well, we should explore this. We should have a look at it. And we signed up for Spatial. Mark Schaefer organized a space for the community. We hopped in, Mitch showed us around, some community members organized some meetups for us. And we just looked at what it was like in there, basically. I actually bought a virtual reality headset to go into the spaces in. You can access the spaces through a computer or even a smartphone, but the headset experience is absolutely incredible. And I think, that's where the real future of it is. So the next thing we did was we organized an event in there, and I helped organize the event where we had 3 speakers just giving 5-minute talks, and we moved from space to space and listened to each speaker's talk and had a Q&A at the end. And it's really, really fascinating. I think obviously, a lot more people will need to have headsets before it'll become any kind of a real opportunity for people. However, I can already see that we have a client in the wellness space who sometimes holds events that there are a certain amount of people that don't feel comfortable going to the event because they feel it's quite exposing to be seen to go to the event. And so I can see massive opportunity for things like that for the metaverse because it's a great leveler. You don't need to, you're not showing up, you're showing up as a 3D avatar. So there's a level of, safeness. You're doing it from your home, but you're not, even on Zoom, like, this is my home behind me here. If you're not comfortable showing up on camera, or if you're not comfortable kind of inviting people into your home like this, the metaverse is a really, really, it just opens up all kinds of possibilities. And also, not to mention the fact that, until you experience the virtual reality headset, it's hard to describe. But when you're on Zoom, you're observing something, you're partaking in something. But when you have the headset in the metaverse, you actually feel like you've been somewhere else. You actually feel like you've had an experience. So I have some memories from our meetups that feel like real memories, not things I observed or not things that I just saw, but things that I actually experienced with those people. It's quite bizarre. What are the short-term opportunities? I'm not sure. I think for people like Mitch, if you were pitching, so what Mitch does, I think, is he will actually send someone a headset so that they can join him in a virtual conference room. And then he can do a pitch in these incredible spaces with these incredible vistas, and so it's fascinating. Is there an opportunity for the clients that I work with right now? I'm not sure, but the rate of acceleration is so fast that I think it's coming soon.
Yeah.
And that's only one aspect that I've spent far too long talking about. But then you have, I've been exploring artificial intelligence image generators. I really want to do a deeper dive into what the other artificial intelligence tools are that are out there. I am really interested in how, Mark's community uses the creator coin to allow people access to different things. So yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stuff, and explored in a very, very easy to digest way.
Yeah. I mean, my head's about to explode, to be honest. I have been to a networking meeting in the metaverse. I wasn't wearing the headset, but it was extremely strange and took a while to kind of get used to it. Sort of playing pool in the metaverse was really, really bizarre.
Right.
But I've had to go with the headsets, and it is completely immersive, and you do feel like you are somewhere else. So that was a bit more that was my nephew's set at Christmas. So it was sort of a very sort of fantastic kind of place to be. Whereas imagining that placing you somewhere like a conference room or a hall, or, that might be quite different. But moving on to the AI, because I know you started out as an artist too, and obviously you are an artist as just one of your many, many hats. But the whole kind of AI thing around art and digital art and NFTs and all of that, what's that all about?
Yeah, so the friend that I actually mentioned him earlier, Emmett O'Neill, he's the CEO of Story Toys, and he sent me some images one day that he was creating using this artificial intelligence image generator called Midjourney. And they were things, he sent me some things like Civil War era Batman, and the artificial intelligence image generator had come up with this fantastic image of what Batman might have looked like in the Civil War era in America. Amazing. And he just said, have you come across this tool, Midjourney? And I hadn't heard of it. And so he sent me an invite. I'm pretty sure it's just open now. At the time it was invite only. So I started to play around with it. And I mean, look, I think everyone finds it fascinating. But I think one of the reasons that I loved it so much immediately was, remember, again, just harking back to earlier when I was saying that I love that immediacy. I love the immediacy of working with solopreneurs, where we can make decisions, we can take action, we can just do it. It doesn't have to go through a board. It doesn't have to, And I think one of the reasons I never found my medium as an artist was because I love that immediacy. So I tried photography, and I actually, again, it's another, I suppose, proving the point. I love digital photography now. I tried photography in college and I loved it, but I really did not enjoy spending all that time in the dark room and mixing the chemicals and going from this bath into the next bath and all those processes. To me, it was like, no, this is taking too long. Printing, screen printing, having to, all the processes involved. And so in the end, what I loved doing artistically was like really fast and loose scribbles, really fast and loose cartoons. But I just never really found a way to make them a thing. And so I think that one of the reasons that I am fascinated with artificial intelligence image generators is because it's so immediate. I can give it a text prompt for what I'm looking for and get this incredible artistic result back immediately, or in minutes. And so yeah, so I was playing with it first of all, and I used up my free credits in no time. So I switched to a paid plan, flew through those credits as well. So I had to go up another tier. And at some point I was like, okay, I'm spending a lot of time in here and I'm spending a bit of money in here. How can this actually be useful? And so I started to look at how I could actually use it. And I had committed to writing one blog post per month. And what I was finding was, I write about things like personal branding and defining your strengths. And it's like there isn't really stock photography that is good for those types of kind of abstract concepts. And even if you do find something, it can be expensive, or it can show up everywhere. You can see the same image on 100 other blog posts. And so because I have a design and an art background, I had started to create images for my own blog posts, but I was doing one image for the header, and that was taking me far too long, even just for that one image. And then I still had 1,000 words, which was coming across as a big block of text because I had no further imagery to support it. So I just thought, okay, well, this is the perfect solution. The artificial intelligence image generator is the perfect solution here. So I just started to explore how I could quickly and easily create multiple images for blog posts, and then just use another tool to very quickly put some brand colors on them so that there's a uniformity throughout my blog posts and throughout my content. And so that's kind of how I justified all that time and money spent playing around with artificial intelligence image generators. So, and I've written all that up as well. So if anyone is interested in how to do that, because I know it's a common problem, finding imagery for long form content as a solopreneur or a small business. And that was published on Mark Schaefer's blog.
Oh, I will go find that. I will go find that because it does. I find that fascinating, and that would be great. So you literally tell the app your title, or you just give it some words, and then how do you add your brand colors? I know obviously you've written all this down, but just very, very quickly.
Yeah, so you give it a text prompt, and I tend to do two things. I'll give it a simple text prompt, and I'll give it a really. So I might take a sentence about. So I might take my heading, for example. If I'm looking for an image for a particular section, I might take the whole heading for that section and pop that in, and then I'll also maybe distill it down to a really simple prompt, which might be just the one key phrase in that heading. I'll give it those two prompts, and I'll see what comes back from both, and then I'll tweak a little bit. So. Often I'll just get something that is perfectly usable immediately. And if I don't, I might simplify the complex one, or I might add words to the simple one. Whichever one was originally closer, I'll work on that one, and you can kind of work it up. And then to put them in your brand colors, I have Photoshop, so I use that. But in the write-up, I use a free tool called Pixlr so that anybody can have access to it. And it's very simple. You just add a layer, you bring it into the tool, you add a layer on top of it, you put one of your solid brand colors in that layer, and then you just change the layer properties so that your brand colors, so that the image shines through your brand colors.
Right.
Yeah, works brilliantly.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And do you feel that that satisfies your creative urges doing it that way? You don't feel like you're cheating?
I actually don't. I think that I mean, I wouldn't say it satisfies my creative urges, but I don't feel like it's cheating because just the human input of the text prompts, the getting the text prompt right, the curating, because what will happen, the image generator will give you four options and then you decide which option you want. So there's quite a lot of curation that goes on as well.
Yeah.
So and I just think, yeah, the time save for me is just absolutely fantastic. Would I would I love to have the time to spend doing the images myself? You know, I actually don't think so because again, it's the process. If I could get to a point where I could scribble down really quick images for each post, then I would probably enjoy doing that. But I haven't perfected, and I have tried, but I haven't perfected the art of doing quick scribbles that I'm then happy
Happy
to
with.
represent my brand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I know the feeling. I have to ask then, I had a quick look at your Instagram, and there's some lovely little cartoons of you and Marci. Did you do those?
I did. But again, I thought I might make a regular thing of that. But again, I just found they took too long. So I stopped. I might do one occasionally on a special occasion, but yeah, as a regular thing, they just ended up taking too long.
Oh, they are great though. They
I,
look just like you. They're fabulous, and especially with the moustache. I mean, obviously, you are now known quite widely for the moustache. In fact, I picked out an image for those of you that are
yeah,
watching this. This is Frank and his moustache. It's even on his banner there. Look, rise above the blah. Yeah, and apparently
yeah.
your moustache talks.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So again, just going back to, I suppose, building your personal brand and amplifying the relevant attributes. Mustache may not be a relevant attribute as such, but it is something that I just noticed people would remark on. And so if that makes, if you amplify the things that people are already remembering you for, you're just making yourself more and more memorable. So I started to have a little bit of fun with mustache, and I wrote a post one day, and Mustache turned up, giving out to me in the post. And from there, it kind of Mustache clearly decided that it was going to take a more central role, and Mustache will pop up. Mustache is a lot more belligerent than I am, and he takes a lot more kind of. He's a bit more. He's not afraid to give out about things and take on. To be honest, actually, sometimes Mustache is much more of a shouty marketer than I would be. So we get into discussions around the nature of marketing and what's ethical and what isn't, and
Yeah,
what's acceptable and what isn't. And I think these are things that I might personally shy away from discussing because I like my LinkedIn presence to be more supportive and to be more positive. But they are important things to discuss as well. So I'm kind of grateful to Mustache for bringing them up so that we can have the discussion and at the same time have it in such a way that I can be the voice of reason, and Mustache can be the belligerent one.
yes. It sounds like a perfect relationship. Sounds a bit like Joyce and Shem.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, well, thank you so much. I can't believe we've been talking for so long. But what are you up to next? What can you tell us about that's up and coming before we finish?
Oh, good question. Well, I'm currently uh, putting the finishing touches on a digital product that will help people define their personal brand. So it'll be something that you can just purchase, work through the videos, define your personal brand, and end up with what I call the personal brand cheat sheet. So It's all done in Google Sheets, and when you're finished, the first sheet in Google Sheets is like it's a visual cheat sheet of your personal brand that is really easy to just go back, refer to, and it keeps you on track. So I'm looking forward to finishing that as soon as I can find the time, and I think that's something that's going to be really useful for people.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. I've got your website here for those that are watching, which is frankandmarci.com. So that's the place that people can go to find out about the personal branding
exactly. And I would just encourage everyone to connect with me on LinkedIn, because I'd love to. That's where I love having chats and meeting people and building my network.
Yeah, brilliant. And I don't know if you mind me showing this one, which is, if people want to go and see more of the acting stuff that you've done and have a look at the show reel and all of that, and hire you as an actor.
Yeah.
That's where you go. frankprendergast.ie. Fabulous. Oh, thank you so much for your time today, Frank. It's been a brilliant talking to you.
Thank you. I've loved it. I've absolutely loved it. So thank you so much. And I'll chat
You're
to you
welcome.
soon.
You're welcome. I hope to see you and Marci back over this side of the.
I hope so.
Yeah, very, very soon. So take care.